All right, we're live. Evening, Professor. For our final capstone project, we decided to just have a group discussion about the topics we've learned in class so far and how we can apply them going forward. I think to start, we figured we'd kind of go over the pre-course questions that you sent out prior to class starting and say what we said before class, and then talk about how we would change them and make them more accurate to applying the stuff we've learned in class so far. Then after that, we're probably going to go into some deeper topics, but we'll see how it goes as
Yeah.
time rolls on. Um, to start, why don't we just talk about like what we said for where we're from
Mhm.
and kind of set the background as to what the environment we grew up in was like because I think at least for me, I came from a extremely ethnic European like town. I think it was a very white community, and it was yeah. I mean, I didn't really ever think about it because that's just all I knew, right? But and then after traveling a lot, I've traveled a lot and going to different places. I kind of it was kind of cool like to see a lot more diversity in places that other than I came from. And you guys have similar experiences, or
Yeah, so I was born in like Baltimore,
okay,
but I moved to Minnesota when I was like one. So a lot of the like ethnic diversity wasn't really present
yeah,
in like suburban Minnesota. Um for me, I definitely think I was a little bit more aware of it
mm,
because my dad being ethnically African, and my mom being ethnically European. I've had a few conversations about stuff like that at home, but not really getting into kind of what we talked about in class.
yeah,
But I would say I've definitely been more aware of it just because of when I go home, I see my dad, and there's not a lot of people that look like him where I'm from.
yeah,
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Boston. I was born in Boston and I grew up in like a low income area.
sure,
So there was more like of an equal
yeah,
diversity split. There were a lot of like ethnically African people, some people from like South America. It was more diverse
yeah.
and it was kind of cool that way actually.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of all you really know before you move somewhere else is where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of just like the community you grew up in. And I'm sure it definitely shapes people's opinions about the world based on what they see. Like we talked about this in class, where I guess the segregation we still see today, like kind of if you only really stay with people who look like you in the same spot, you're gonna, I guess, just inherently form some opinions
Mm-hmm.
about people who don't maybe look like you and people surrounding you, which I think is problematic, to say the least.
Yeah,
But
sure.
um, so yeah, I mean, let's just get into it. Like, what you guys want to talk about? What you said for how to define race? I guess we can just
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
start.
if you want to start.
Sure, yeah. So in pre-class, I said in my mind, race is defined as the physical features somebody has that are influenced by their heritage. Which, looking back, I don't really know what that means. I think this is
Yeah.
kind of. I'm sure from what it sounds like, most people kind of said the same kind of mumble jumbo
Mm-hmm.
marble statement, but that's I guess that's not that doesn't really mean anything. Yeah,
Yeah, what I said is more or less the color of your skin and the region that you or your ancestors were from. Um, I definitely think, I mean, I feel like it has a little bit more of an idea than what you were saying,
yeah,
but also it is conflating the, like, my definition of race with, like, ethnicity, which is, like, where you or your ancestors were from.
yeah,
And I think that's, like, definitely something that, like, we needed to clear up
yeah.
in class.
Yeah, so I had for my definition of race before class, I had the name for grouping humans together formed by society.
Look at you.
I mean,
All right.
it's good if you're talking to like a 7-year-old,
Right.
but I, my like thought wasn't fully there or
Yeah,
completed yet.
it's
But
a great start though.
Yeah, I mean it's
compared to
better.
what John and I
I
had.
would say like, and I think we should probably after taking this class, I think we all have a much more similar and way more accurate definition of what race is. I mean, as we kind of have we've learned like there is no race doesn't actually exist, right? Like we can kind of put that out there. Like there's no real basis behind race. Um, and I think if I was gonna redefine it, right?
Mhm.
But we did this in class one
Yeah.
Tuesday. Like, I would definitely talk about how it is a lot. Like, like Professor said
Yeah.
on Tuesday, like that
Explicitly
really
say.
should be in there
Yeah.
because I mean, prior to this class, myself and I didn't know anybody. I don't think a single person that I ever talked to about race like even mentioned the fact that it wasn't necessarily real. You know. Yeah, I think I would if I had to redefine it, I would just say like
Mhm.
I would probably start with it's a lie, it's unfounded,
Yeah.
you know, and then I would talk about how it's a fabricated concept like created to put humans into groups and basically like let ethnic Europeans kind of have power over the ethnic
Yeah.
Africans. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I like that because I think as like even as I've been growing up with other people, like even and like talking with like my some of my roommates as like I started the course, people have just kind of taken race as like a fact,
yeah,
and I think
definitely.
that's like, and I think we talked about this in class a little, but that's I feel like that's like one of the most dangerous parts of it because we're just kind of going along with it
Mm.
as if it is 100% real, and instead of like challenging it and being like this is a lie, it's not real, here's like there's no actual biological
Like basis.
basis for it. Yeah, like we were saying. So yeah, I think that's kind of an important part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like during the pre-course questions, I mostly thought of race as more of like a tool more than a fact or like something real.
Well, I mean, can I jump in? I'm like,
Yeah, go for
it
it.
has been used as a tool
It definitely is a tool,
to
100%.
yeah to
Yeah.
divide and to keep people in power, like what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, that was kind of my thought process. I was like, it's really meant to keep one group of people up here and have a group of people way below them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been installed to keep it that way, you know?
It was installed to keep it
Yeah.
to make it that way, and then
Yeah.
it's been continued to like it is a tool. It is a tool that a lot of people in power have used to kind of keep the status quo. Were you like taught that concept growing up, or was
Yeah.
that something that you kind of?
Like, so in third grade, I low-key had like a racist teacher.
Yeah.
I definitely think she had some bias because
Mhm.
I had my best friend was this kid named Zachariah. He grew up in so the way my neighborhood works is there's like a low income housing, another low income housing like to the left,
Yeah.
and one behind, and then there's the elementary school like centered.
Right.
My friend Zach grew up in that other like housing
Yeah.
or project, and it we took like a math quiz or some kind of quiz, and my teacher came up to me and was talking about like Zach cheated off of you and blah blah blah
Yeah.
blah blah, and I mean I knew Zach. I didn't sit next to him,
Yeah.
and he got a 100 and I got a like 100, and she was just super like suspicious of him, and I don't mean to jump to conclusions
right.
now, but like I'm pretty sure there's a reason why.
She had some issues. Right?
Yeah, so it was just kind of like something that's kind of been there, but I didn't really think about, you know?
Yeah, and so like I guess like my question was like, did you have like a teacher who would like when you're taking like I guess like the middle school or high school classes about like racism and the history of our country, like was that what was it ever taught to you that race is more of a tool used to um, delegate people to the groups, or was that like or like where did you get that notion from coming?
Not really. Like
Yeah.
I never had a teacher talk
Okay.
about anything like that. I guess more like experience.
Sure,
Like growing
yeah.
up in the neighborhood, everyone
That's
looks
true.
different,
Mhm.
but I still just like
Yeah.
little kid thought everyone was the same,
Right.
you know? Just kind of
Interesting.
kept that going.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I wonder if
Yeah.
people like born and like people who are born and raised like in major cities like kind of have similar outlooks on that because I mean I've never lived in a city really
Yeah.
in my conscious life.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like yeah, it's interesting.
I wonder if we can.
But yeah, so it is actually kind of funny like going back and reading. This is the first time I've looked at what I said pre-class.
Yeah,
and
me too. It's I hate it. I actually hate it.
I-
I hate
yeah.
when I wrote.
It's kind of embarrassing. Yeah.
I just feel like I was ignorant. I know that for a fact. Like I definitely have. I mean, I've never really been taught. We've had like U.S. history classes where
Yeah.
they definitely have gone over some like the more prominent like instances of racism and
Yeah,
slavery
of
and all
course,
this
yeah.
stuff. But I've never really had like a class where it's like really talked about and like highlighted and like been mainstreamed, you
Yeah.
know. And so I guess I kind of like and then go ahead and take the time on my own to kind of look deep into it, and so it makes me really grateful I took this class because like I've definitely learned a lot about what race and racism and these issues and all that stuff kind of is. But yeah, so what did you guys say? What did you guys define racist as?
I my definition was someone who makes assumptions slash preconceived notions about a person or group because of their race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, well, this is gonna kind of equalize it because for my definition of racist, I said someone that judges people based off differences in nationality or culture.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I said pretty similar things. I just said a racist to me is defined as someone who treats people differently depending on their race and or appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is just a one example of how race and racist kind of are conflated, maybe.
I think we're allowed to. I think
But
it's
race and
okay
racist
to like.
are more so.
You can.
Yeah. I mean,
you
I
can
still
conflate race and racist. I think
100%.
'cause-
I mean, I still had race in my definition.
Yeah, of
so
course.
that's, I guess that's more
Yeah,
so
me
what I
too.
mean, where it's like, I think I liked. So obviously, like we were, it was said in class that our professor that he defines as a racist as someone who just believes in race, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a decent definition. I just don't know. Like, I feel like to me, racist is more needs to be defined as someone who, like, because we'll talk about racism in a bit, right? But a racist is like the person. Racist is more
Yeah.
the actions, right? And so I feel like a racist maybe should be labeled as someone who maybe commits the actions, instead of so.
Yeah, that's what I had like in my head,
Right.
and I think that's the definition that most people like out in the world have.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everyone in the class was so like taken aback when he said
Mhm.
we're all
100%.
racist,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
And so I think it's a little bit hard to have like the definition of racist be someone who believes in race
Mhm.
when it's like when it's like the common definition of and how everyone sees it is as people who people who do these violent acts against,
Yeah, I mean,
because of their
Yeah.
like race.
I would say the caveat to
Right.
that is we don't really necessarily have to like base our definition based off of the societal definition. Now,
exactly,
race is a
right.
perfect example.
Yeah.
I guess like, but maybe in my mind, like after taking this class and having learned all the topics we covered, like I would more so go as far as to say, just a racist is someone who commits violent or hateful acts based on like male bias. Maybe would be a better way to put that because at the end of the day, like in the context that we're talking about, and pretty much most of the context you'll see throughout the world, like a racist is someone who looks at ethnic Africans and views them differently or acts against them. So I think like when you say male bias, like that kind of is more that covers it. I would say.
Yeah.
But what
Do
do
you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the professor's definition of racist is almost made to be like more encompassing.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
because you can be a racist and believe in race, but not commit like racism, as in like the actions. But you can't be committing the actions and not believe in race.
Right, that's true.
It's kind of like flipped, A racist can be like, when I first heard him call all of us racist, I was like, well, yo, what?
Yeah, no, me too.
Pause.
I
Pause for a sec, yeah. And then I was like, and then the more you talk, the more kind of like
it made sense. Yeah, once you clarified.
like
100%.
it came into like two different sections under an umbrella. Like a racist that believes in just like race existing, and then a racist that actually commits all the actions or in like prejudice and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe there needs to be a new word for just someone, and maybe even just like ignorant kind of encompasses like the believing in race part because that's all it is at the end of the day. It's ignorance and it's like someone who doesn't really know, So yeah, I think like I was saying earlier, like in my mind, I think to define a racist, you need to mention someone who like has the beliefs and goes out of their way to discriminate and commit acts against.
You mind if I get a word in?
Yeah, sure.
I almost don't think that like ignorance a right word though.
Yeah.
Because like the three of us, we had no idea,
Right.
and we weren't like willingly ignorant. We just had no one really like taught us,
Right.
and everyone that tried to teach us kind of like led us in the wrong direction.
Definitely.
it's almost like a lack of education more than anything.
I think that is what ignorance means, though.
Yeah, I say
Like,
yeah. I think part like willfully ignorant is like you're
Yeah.
trying to avoid
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
info.
But I think
Ignorant is just you just don't really know. And
Yeah.
that's
So I guess like the unwillful ignorance is more what I guess I was
Yeah.
referring to there. Where I mean again like going back to maybe the pre-course quote, like the actual idea, like I would define a racist as someone who um, views I think Africans as inferior maybe,
Yeah.
and then commits the acts
Mhm.
of harm or
Yeah.
violent acts
Yeah.
due to humiliating bias. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
how I would define that.
I feel like for me, I like the definition of like racist is someone who believes in race because like ist is like the root of like one who and like believes in race, right?
Yeah.
I do. I also like kind of your point of like someone who is like malicious with it.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can kind of like almost merge them, like someone who believes in race, like specifically someone who also like has those preconceived notions.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to like have to include that because I feel like if you believe in race, you already believe in those preconceived notions
I
of
agree.
like different
Differences.
characteristics of like all the types of like of melanin,
Yeah.
like phenomelanin, eumelanin. I forget the other one, but just having like those preconceived notions, I feel like you already have some of those biases, and so I feel like the definition of one who believes in race, as being racist, I feel like is encompassing kind of enough.
I agree. Were you gonna say something? Or-
Nah, that's pretty fair. That's a great definition.
I mean, yeah, I would say so. This kind of ties into the next question: is can anybody be racist?
Mhm.
And that's where I think the distinction might have to be made because I think anyone can be racist in the sense of they can believe in race, right? But also like I guess in more of the secondary definition where you I mean are go out of your way to commit these acts or you view people differently based on their skin color, or, you know, you're not born with that by any
Yeah,
means. No
exactly.
one is born with these preconceived notions about people. Like it's something that you develop based on your environment, right?
Definitely.
And so I guess with the question, can anybody be racist? Anyone can. Like anyone can have these ideas about people. That anyone can, believe these lies about differences in people just because of the way they look. But it's a matter of what you believe in, your mindset, and yeah, I'd say where you grew up for sure. That's what I think now. I guess what I said was anyone can be racist, but it's not something you're born with or without, but rather a mindset of opinions that one develops based on a variety of factors as they grow up, which is pretty similar to what I think I still believe.
Do you want to go or do you want?
What I first said for can anyone be a racist? My answer was short. I just said yeah, any kind of person can be a racist based on their actions. So just kind of like taking in the whole definition of racism being the actions. I kind of was conflating that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like like what you said earlier about like the two different types of being a racist.
Right.
I feel like using racist to describe all the actions isn't like I don't love that.
I think
so
that's.
much.
I think
It
that's
needs
actually.
to be
I think that's
separated.
fair. I think after talking about this, because I don't think we really talked about it in class, like a true definition of racism, other than just believing in race, right? I think that's kind of we
For
really,
racist.
yeah, we didn't really mention that. So
Yeah, I feel like that wasn't as much as like a point of the class. I feel like the class is more about like being able to educate others and
Yeah,
like
I agree.
ourselves. But yeah, what I put for can I be a racist is I said I think anyone can be a racist, even if it's not on purpose. But I don't think that everyone is a racist because I think I was trying to like people can be racist without being a racist.
yeah,
Because I feel like there are people that like will make like racist jokes. I mean, although and now that we've learned about it, I'm thinking yeah, those people are still a racist because they're believing in race, and even though they're maybe not purposely trying to harm the people that they're making jokes about, which I mean, if they're making jokes, it might be anyway.
right.
They're still like, they're still harmful because they're like furthering the stereotypes or other, stick with stereotypes or other ideas about people that
I agree.
aren't necessarily true. And I think anyone, and now I'm kind of at the same point is like, I think anyone can be racist, but to your point, it's like it's like a learned behavior
Yeah, I doubt
based
definitely is,
on based on people's environments,
It's
and I think that's the biggest like point.
it's not
That's a
natural to
number.
view people differently based on the way they look. I mean, so I think it's a learned behavior for sure. Do we want to go back and just like make a definition for racist? Do you think?
Yeah.
'Cause I think like to your point, like after talking about it now, I think I do agree that it doesn't have to. The definition maybe doesn't need to incorporate like the actions per se. I, so I'm kind of wondering like how I would define that if somebody asked me, like um, in terms of I would say it's more of a mindset thing as to do you view people differently based on the way they look or not, and have these opinions about people because of the levels of melanin in
Yeah.
their skin. I think that's maybe better than
Mhm.
because I think because you can still be a racist without committing actions against somebody. You can still have the
Yeah,
opinions. You're
I
just,
think.
you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think. Although I think we know race, like we learned that race isn't real, but I still feel like there are like, because I mean, people you notice people like people that look different,
Yeah,
like
100%.
as of now,
You can see
like
it, yeah.
because I feel like even like just walking the street, even like here, if I see like an someone that's like ethnically African, or just basically not ethnically European,
Right.
like I notice them more than I would someone who isn't, based on the fact that there's just like less of
Yeah.
it. And so like I'm like in that moment I'm like that is kind of like uncommon. And I think that's like I don't like I'm not trying to do that, but my brain just kind of like automatically is like,
Yeah.
just and like not that like I don't treat them any differently than I would someone else, at least to my knowledge. I mean,
Right.
maybe I'm actually pretty sure I'm sure I have some sort of like unconscious
Implicit
bias.
bias,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm almost positive that I do because I feel like everyone does. That's just based on like where you
I
grew
think
up.
we
and
talked about it in
like,
class too, where like a lot of times you're not even like conscious that you have it.
Yeah.
You don't even notice it, which is I would be really curious to dive deeper into my own mind and see if there are any implicit
Yeah,
bias
that'd be
there.
so
But,
cool.
all right, do we want to talk about because there wasn't a question about what is racism, I don't think, but I feel like we should maybe.
Yeah, let's. Do you want to go through? Want to finish a pre-quiz
Sure,
question
yeah, I'm
and
cool with
keep
that.
doing that? 'Cause I think we'll have like two more.
Yeah.
And then so like ethnicity.
So yeah, what is ethnicity? I just said ethnicity is the heritage that one comes from, including cultural aspects, language, location, etc., which I think is pretty accurate as to my knowledge.
Yeah, I did not have a good. I had work. I just kind of said like where you're from, and then or like where you identify with and the culture surrounding it, which
That's
I
not that
think
bad.
I don't like. I feel like conflating culture and ethnicity are different. Are that's not
Well,
great.
culture is part of ethnicity for sure.
Is it?
Yeah,
I mean, I
I
feel
think
like
so.
I feel like we talk about in class like you can be ethnically one thing and culturally another. So like we're culturally American, but we're I mean I'm ethnically European as well, but I'm
Right.
also ethnically African,
Mhm.
and so but we're all culturally American, as well as I mean I'm sure we have some elements of
Right.
like where like our ancestors were from, in our culture just based on like our family and how it works. But I also think that they can be talked about in like separate
Yeah. Okay.
discussions.
That's true.
Like while they might relate in some way, I don't think it's safe to like have them in the same definition of each
That's
other.
fair. Yeah. What'd you say, Connor?
Well, you're gonna hate me then.
Okay,
I said the culture that you were born from, so
that's all right. I mean, it's.
But yeah, no, I do feel like ethnicity is more about like where your ancestors are from. It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like we talked about in class how like ethnicity is kind of just like the heritage from which you are. So maybe you can be culturally one thing and ethnically, from your
Yeah.
ancestors. But I do think it's kind of interesting how at least we had a much better idea of what ethnicity is versus what race was, which seems intentional because ethnicity is very real and race
Yeah.
clearly is not. And yeah, I just think that's kind of strange. Like I guess like when I was filling out these questions, like race I didn't really know, racist I also didn't really know, but ethnicity is okay. I have a pretty good idea as to what that means. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
is
I feel like I thought I knew what I was talking about
Right.
when the question, but clearly not when I pressed more about it. I couldn't like expand myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the question of what is your definition of ethnicity felt less like uncomfortable when we were
Yeah,
looking at
definitely.
it.
I
Like
agree.
I could like understand what to put down. I just wording it was kind of tough.
Yeah.
But for questions like race and racist, it took me like a cup. It took me a
I had to
little
think
bit.
about
I had
it.
to go
Yeah,
sit down
definitely.
and just think.
Why do you think that is?
Probably has to do with the fact that ethnicity is like a real thing
Definitely.
and race isn't.
Yeah. I'm sure.
It's like trying to find the root of nothing. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you're right.
positive.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to talk about like what we can do going forward with this information? Because I do
Yeah.
feel like we are definitely
sorry.
kind of a minority in the sense that we actually are educated on this matter, and I feel like a lot of kids our age and a lot of just people in general like have never really been taught like a full semester's worth of material as to what is race and racism and the
Yeah.
issues in our country.
Yeah. Before you,
Yeah.
should we make sure we cover what
Is there?
what racism is before?
Oh
we,
yeah. Oh,
just so
good call.
before we
Yeah.
talk about how it to talk to the
100%.
people about that. I think we need to
Yeah. So we're gonna skip.
come
back to
come back
Good
to
call.
come back to that and talk about racism first.
Sure.
So as we talked about in class, racism is the like eumelanic bias and abuse. And I think something that it took me a while for it to like kind of click in my head.
Right.
But the like intentional versus not intentional actions, like where this stereotypical like white woman clenches her purse extra tight when like near like an ethnically African man,
Right.
is like that isn't like an intentional like harmful thing to that ethnically African person. However, it still is,
Yeah.
and
100%.
therefore it's an act of racism. And so I just think that it's like, and it a lot of the things in this class took me a while to like kind of get behind as we've like just talked about them more and more, and like and through discussion I've like started to like kind of understand kind of where we're coming from. But yeah, you guys got anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, for racism, I always kind of thought that was the act, cause like racist, the like ist is
Yeah.
like defining people, and racism is more of like an action. I don't know. That's just like English for me.
Yeah.
But I was pretty certain I could describe racism and like define it, and then going into class, just like what you said, just figuring out like intentional and unintentional, even though both are still like arguably just as harmful,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
can be just as harmful, which is just something that was pretty new to me. It took a little bit to click.
No, I agree. I came into the class with pretty similar ideas, like what you were saying, Laura, is like a racist is somebody, racism is the actions, right? Which, but again, like if you ask me to like give a definition of like what is racism, I think I would have said the same, like similar, like mumbo jumbo is what I said for race and racist. And I think like now that we've taken this course and like soaked up the material, like I would like again we did this in class Tuesday, like what is racism, but what makes sense to me in terms of that is it's the action part, whether it's intentional or unintentional, the actions of harm or violence, which was debated in class. But I mean, I think harm and or violence,
Yeah.
that, in my opinion, they go kind of hand in hand. But in this scenario, but it's yeah, like the actions with or without intent,
Yeah.
of harm against somebody based off of email bias. It's like the actions somebody or an organization or a group of people do to someone or a group of people that causes them harm would be an act of racism or against racism.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
You
think.
mind if I jump in really quick? I'm not a big fan of the word racist.
I kind of agree.
I feel like it makes it pretty easy to confuse with like race, racist,
Of course, yeah.
racism. I think just using the word prejudice for what we mean to talk about racism is pretty much like the same thing. Because prejudice is that taking an action against someone to cause harm.
Isn't prejudice just the ideas you have though? Isn't
It can be both.
Okay. I personally like EBA, like
Yeah.
bias and abuse. I think that's a really good definition, and in my brain I've actually like been able to kind of make that switch, because it still describes the actions of racism without conflating it with race and tying it into race. And it at the end of the day, like it is racism, or what we can like say is racism here. Like it's about you see someone with you melanin, or I guess lack thereof, or someone who looks differently from you, and you have opinions about them, and you commit an act against them, right? So I think emelanic bias and abuse is a pretty good. I agree with that terminology, and
Yeah.
I think I will be using that going forward. 100%.
You know, I like that for sure.
The only thing with EBA is I feel like Thanksgiving, we're all at the table. I start talking about EBA. My
Right.
grandparents are gonna look at me like I that 10,000 heads.
Yeah.
They'd
No,
be
that's
like,
true.
"What the hell am I talking about?"
Mhm.
I think starting with like the word prejudice and then like moving towards
Yeah, well,
EBA
yeah.
is probably the move.
Again, it took us 13 weeks of class to kind of shift the mindset,
Of
right?
course.
So I think it's obviously not going to be something that you can maybe like do in one sitting with somebody. And I think this kind of actually ties in really well to our next point, which was
Yeah. How do we talk
how,
about
how do we spread the word, right?
Mhm.
Like how to not so much spread the word, but like how do we educate our peers and other people that our family and all that stuff like going forward. Um,
Yeah, I think I like after the first class or two, I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk to my roommates about this, and completely just like I would like talk about, and I kind of had the idea of like race isn't real, but we hadn't really talked about all that much at that point, and so I feel like when I was just talking, I was like talking in circles because I didn't want to be like, you're right, race is real,
Right.
and we were talking. One of my roommates was talking about how like asking about like all these different cultures, and it's like these different like skin color and all that stuff. And I felt like it was hard because he was like conflating race and ethnicity like very, very
which
much.
most people do.
Yeah, exactly. And I myself
Yeah, I
did
did.
that. And so when talking to him, it was very hard to be like race isn't real. And then he's like, and then he said something like, okay, then like someone who would like, but being black is real. Like, yeah, like you're someone that's ethnically European.
Ethnic
and
African.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
misspoke. Yeah,
Okay.
and the African. Um, and then, um, then he was like, then that person is black and their race is like African American or black, and I was kind of like stuck. 'Cause I don't really know what to say because it's hard to like change someone's mind based off again based off one conversation,
Right.
and I think it's starting it, and I think coming from a place of like being almost like curious as to why they believe that and
Right.
try to like explain where you're coming from instead of like trying to force it down their throat.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that is the first like that's the easiest way to just have someone shut down completely
100%.
and just be like, I'm not gonna listen to you. Like
Yeah.
you're telling me I'm wrong, so I'm just not gonna listen. Yeah. It's just
Yeah, I actually had a pretty comparable experience to like you and your roommate. My roommate grew up in like Atlanta, Georgia, so actually we grew up pretty similarly, like
Yeah.
location wise. He had more or less like I actually showed him the assignment a couple times because I was like stumped or
Yeah.
just like taking time to process all the questions for a little while, and I talked to him after I had completed and like turned in the assignment, and we were on relatively like the same page for most of the questions, which I thought was like pretty cool to see someone come from like a roughly similar background than me, have the same
Similar environment.
ideals. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess like when when the question is like, how are you going to educate people going forward? Like, I get the first thing that comes to my mind with that is get them to again understand that race is real, and it's definitely from what you've said, it's like going to be race isn't real. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it might be difficult at first because, well, first you need to have the education, the understanding of why it's not real, right? But then most people kind of do have this preconceived notion that it definitely is real. It's a fact.
Mhm.
And I think like I going forward, like I would probably like get them to understand that like, well, yes, having you melanin in your skin is a fact that is real. But like, why is there a need to categorize people
Yeah.
based on what they look like? You
I
know,
like that.
and I would maybe then go and ask them like, okay, if race is an actual thing, like, what's the purpose of it?
Yeah,
Right. And
true.
like, is there
Like- why are we doing
is there actual difference other than just the way you look, which
Yeah.
we know there isn't, right? At least biologically, 100%. You know, so I think like present it to them in the sense where like phrase it as okay, yeah, like there are visual differences in people, of course, but why is there a need to categorize them based on these differences, right? You know, and try to maybe cut the chain there if you will.
Yeah.
I think I also kind of think about it as like when you say like educate people going forward, like I think about it like when I have kids, like how am I gonna raise them in an environment and also like teach them these things as they grow up.
Mhm.
And I think like it's not because it's not one of those things where you can just let them like figure it out on their own because they'll have come up with the wrong idea about it, you know.
Well, hopefully not, but the
Hopefully
odds
not.
are that
Odds are, yeah.
if the
100%.
world is similar to how it is today, then
Exactly, you know, if the level of education stays the same, and I think you take it slow. Like if they um, let's say like if they're in preschool, right, and they make friends with kids who don't look the same as them, they're gonna notice it. Then I mean, it's not gonna be an issue for them.
Yeah.
So they're not like
Why
you
would it
know
be? Yeah.
exactly. So I would like maybe start there and be like, okay, like hey, like say like my daughter's a friend Jasmine or some shit. Like hey, like um, I have to like kind of think
Yeah, I
more.
mean-
It's down the line,
yeah, cross the bridge will come.
but I guess more so like the immediate now. Like what do you do to educate Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Right? Is the classic example. And I think yeah, I would start with the fact that the races don't exist in the first place, and there's no biological basis that says because you look like this, you're gonna act like this. You know,
Exactly.
and I think like it's important to have the connection be made in their minds that actions are based on your environment that you grew up in. It's not based on the way you look, you know. And then I think go with that, and I would say like people aren't always going to be receptive,
Of course.
and so I think there might be some cases of people you just can't convince because they're so dead set, and that's why I think the saying like it's easier to what is easier to build build children than
Yeah, it's like
that.
it's
Yeah.
easier to like build strong children than repair broken men, something like that. They're
And
fighting
fix broken men. Like there
Um,
are going to be people that you're not going to
Yeah.
change, and that's not really your fault though. Like as long as you try your best and
Yeah, I mean, and like I don't even know if it's necessarily that person's fault either. Like the person that doesn't want to like that isn't is like set in their ways, because like yeah, we know,
yeah,
but like they don't, and so they haven't taken like this semester long course, and you know, even if and maybe even if they did, they wouldn't learn, but I think that it's like I don't know. I mean, like blame is hard, but like I see where you're coming from.
you're gonna say something.
I think that's almost like willingly being ignorant.
That's exactly
no.
Yeah,
Like
no,
if you approach them and there's like no,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
that
And
is
you're like all right,
blind
like,
ignorance.
yeah.
Probably out like its definition.
That's willful ignorance. 100%.
Yeah, also yeah, no, I definitely agree. I was saying like if you have this conversation and like at the end they're still like not convinced, which is also fair because I mean I wasn't convinced after the first class really, like I wasn't like 100% like this is exactly what I believe now.
Well, that's probably good.
But-
I mean,
Yeah,
you should be
yeah.
skeptical of what you're being taught. 100%.
Yeah.
But
I mean, like it's also a 13-week class.
Of course.
Like, we
Yeah.
picked it up probably towards the middle end,
Mhm.
or at least we picked it up like better. Like we started understanding everything that we were being told instead of just like being a sponge and just
Yeah.
writing down
yeah,
everything
100%.
on the board. You know, it takes a while to, especially something kind of like life changing, almost like
Mhm.
that.
It's like outlook changing.
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
we are at a stage in our society where it's such a commonly talked about matter, right? Where
sure.
it's wrapped up in politics, and I hate how that's happened, but that's for another time. And like you know, it's everywhere, and so I think I'm really glad that I had this experience with this class because I'm now able to critically view material, but like
Oh, for
you
sure.
know, people talk about it and all that stuff. And I guess like one thing I was gonna say earlier was that like a big part of like educating people going forward is like correcting incorrect statements you hear. Where if someone says something that isn't that is ignorant or if it's not, you know, it's incorrect, like I think like don't do it gently, but be like, hey, like just by the way, like what you said there was wrong, and then explain to them
Explain,
why. Yeah, I think that's the big thing is it's just when presented with the opportunity, I think it's pretty important that you like take it, you know.
I mean, yeah, going back to what you were saying a little bit ago, like talking to your children,
Yeah,
I think the whole reason why our professor is teaching this course is to like really get it through to us, all these ideas about like
Yeah.
racism, racist.
yeah,
Because I think when you have like a preschooler who's making friends with people that don't look like your
Right.
child, the most important thing you can do is actually like your own actions and
100%.
how you
Or-
act
or
around other
inaction.
people.
yeah,
Yeah. Like,
Sorry.
and just starting there and kind of giving your child like a good role model
Mhm.
to
For sure.
see how to act.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm.
I also think like it is important to teach them correctly before they get taught incorrectly because it's a lot easier to teach somebody something when they don't know anything about it versus change their mind after they've already made their mind up. So, I guess when I do have kids and I start learning how to parent, that's gonna be a thing to
Yeah,
consider
I mean,
as to
you
how
gotta-
I am gonna teach it. But it's
Got a few years before.
hopefully,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think like one thing that I think maybe we should just like quickly talk about is was it easy for you guys to accept this material through in class, or was it kind of a difficult like process to go through to change your mind?
For me, I like understood the idea of it. Like I understood like what like where first we're coming from. For me, and like I think this comes from like a conversation I had with my roommate about like I was like, okay, I'm learning this and I
Mhm.
picked it up. Like, what difference is me knowing this gonna make?
Right.
That was like my biggest hurdle that I needed to get over, and I think like after discussing more with you guys and our group and just even like some other people I know in the class, it's like it might not be like a big change in the world, but it's still like a change and it's what I can do
Yeah.
and just to like go out into the world with like this information and use it when I can.
Yeah.
And actually I'm gonna backtrack a little bit to
Sure.
where we were talking about how to talk about other people.
Mhm.
And one thing I might even use earlier today when talking to someone about it is like for like dividing people up into races, like where do you draw the line? Like if you took
Exactly.
everyone in the world who was well say ethnically African or black, and you just line them up, or even everyone in the world, like anyone in between, white, like where are you gonna draw a line? And like when you do draw a line, why isn't the person one to the left or one to the right?
Yeah.
Why aren't they included
That's-
in one of these groups?
That's
Right? And so I feel like that is like a because there's so many people that are like just such incrementally different with like
100%.
you melanin, and so in my head I'm like you can't logically be like why is this person that like
Yeah.
in one way this person like or why do my sister and I look like why is my sister darker than I am
Right.
when we have the same parents?
Yeah.
Right? Like is she more black than I am? Like she has more melanin, but I don't know why that would make us any
Is that like
different,
saying like
culturally
she's
or anything. Yeah.
African American and your wife, are you
Yeah.
the same parents? Like, it
Exactly.
makes no
Like
sense.
that's
It
not
makes
that's
no
not gonna
sense.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was super like skeptical because like first couple classes like big claims.
Big statements.
I,
but
yeah, I
sure.
wasn't like super quick to just like oh okay
Yeah.
and just
Mhm.
believe everything. But like the more thought that you give the topics we went over in class and like the more it makes at least to me everything started to make sense what he was saying and how
100%.
like you can say all the same things without using like racist, race, and
yeah.
any of these
Mm.
ideas or like false ideas. And that's how I kind of got to click a little down the line just by like thinking through everything that was
Yeah.
being said, you know?
100%. I would say like whenever I've taken a class or been learning anything really that's not like black and white subjective, like I would say like math and science, like very like the teacher's like, okay, like this is the formula they use, and like okay, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I kind of just like blindly accept it. But like whenever it's like a more subjective class, like I kind of always approach it with like prove to me why you think this is right, and then I will assess and agree or disagree, you know, like based on what you taught me.
Yeah.
And so I guess when I came into this class, like I knew that I never really had like learned anything at all,
Mhm.
at least like intentionally about these subjects. So I don't think I was necessarily like critical, but I was I would say I was critical. I was like, okay, like I was curious at least, right? Where, and I've kind of always been of the opinion, like I'm gonna, I'm not gonna just blindly believe you with what you say, but I will, if you make sense to me and it makes sense, I'm gonna believe it, right? If you show me why it's right, then yeah. And I feel like for me, like over the course of this class, like the professor's done a very good job of like proving why what he believes is right, not just because he says them and he's a professor, but because like he has a lot of sound logic behind why he believes what he believes.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, I think it was pretty easy for me to learn, I
Yeah.
would say. And I guess a second side of that is like, did you find yourselves like being able to let go of the preconceived notions you had about race and racism? Because I think like, at least for me, like it was pretty easy for me to believe race isn't real because of what we have been taught, or change my language based on like what we were taught in class also because like again because I never had like a pre-learned belief. It was like something that like I just picked up off the like over as the course of my life like I've picked up these notions, right? But the fact that I was like taught something with scientific backing like made that I had felt no desire to hold on to my old ways because they were ignorant and uneducated, and so that switch I think was easier for me than maybe it was for some people. But I'm just curious what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, the switch. So the switch took a little bit longer, I'd imagine, for me than it did for you, just
Maybe.
because like I approach stuff like you hear a big statement on the news.
Yeah.
I'm cautious. I want to like
Yeah,
go
100%.
fact check
Yeah,
everything,
definitely.
make sure it's right. I was just more cautious to believe everything more so than like once I actually felt like I understood what the professor was teaching us and felt like I had like a good understanding and a good foundation, it was pretty easy to let go of. It just took
Yeah.
time to like build up the trust.
So yeah, we're in the exact same
Yeah.
boat then. I agree.
Yeah, I
It did.
think
Oh,
it's. Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
It wasn't like an instant thing. I did have to like learn why he was saying what he was saying. Why he was saying what he was saying. Right. Like I think the class it was for me that really that switch went was the class about the melanin types of melanin.
Yep.
Like and learning that like it's not racist and genetic, and but it's actually like racist and genetic, and then also like what we perceive as race is just the levels of melanin, and these is what they're used for, in like biologically. And then like after that class, I was like, okay, like this definitely makes sense. I'm I'm buying what he's selling, and that's kind of where that yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, just trying to like switch the language again, what kind of you were saying, like I've just like stopped, like just stopped including like racial or race like
In anything, you don't even
in
need it.
yeah
Yeah, we
like
learned
I
it. Yeah,
don't like I you literally just don't need it. And so like kind of like omitting that from my like word use, I think has made it a lot easier to be just like kind of correct in what I'm saying.
definitely.
Um, I do think that it's can be hard based on like just being around other people that like use that, and
Yeah,
I haven't gotten quite to the point of like just like correcting them
Mhm.
because I'm still kind of getting more confident with like
Sure.
these ideas of like how it's like it's a lie and all that stuff.
Well, no one wants to lose an argument, right?
Yeah,
That's so
right. So
yeah,
I don't want to like start that and then just like lose because if anything, that's gonna cement their view
yeah,
more in it.
exactly.
So I guess I've like for myself I've done it, but I haven't quite been
Yeah,
projecting as much.
and I think that's fine. Like the way I see it, like before like I kind of said earlier, before I'm gonna go out and try to change people's, like educate people, I need to have a fully educated foundation myself. And I think I would hope I'm pretty much at that point by now. Like I think we've had enough classes, and we've been kind of maybe these past couple weeks have been more so just like recapping and
Of course, yeah.
resetting these foundational ideas. And so yeah, I think maybe one of the last things we can wrap it up here. But the last thing is like, do you feel like you've learned in this class? Like, because I feel like we've been talking about this the whole time, but like I feel like I've definitely like learned a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, a lot of the classes I've been taking throughout college, they're all just building off of prior classes. It's like Calc 1, Calc 2,
Yeah.
Calc 3, like all this shit. But like with this class, it's kind of like it was a kind of a brand new topic for
Yeah.
me, and I feel like
Me
I've
too.
really been able to. It was definitely taught to me in a way that was easy to learn and to soak up the material and to kind of leave the class at the end of the semester like feeling like I know the information, but also have my own opinions about it based on what we learned.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think that to your point, like as far as like a standalone class, I feel like I've learned the most in this class that I have in any other class. Granted, this is my second year here, but
Right.
and I really like how the class like it took some of the history,
Mhm.
but I don't. And I think he mentioned this how it he took some history out on purpose to talk more about like
Today.
yeah, talk more about like what we need to know for today. And I think that made it a lot more even it's a lot more educational. I think it like while the history applications are important,
Mhm.
I do think that the added discussion of the like issues and problems that this type of language and these systems have um, kind of brought out today
Sure.
are more beneficial for our learning. And I also like the discussion part of the class. There's a lot of like
Yeah,
a
that's a
lot of open
big
discussion.
thing
And
for
while
me.
although I didn't talk all that much in this class, I I'm more of like a processor, so like I like to listen to what people say and like kind of think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And it usually takes me like a little while to like come up with like a good response.
Sure.
So yeah, but I think it was like I think I learned a lot in this class.
I mean, I haven't even been here for a semester yet.
Right.
I'm like what 5 classes deep,
You're
Mason.
brand new, man.
Not to brag or anything.
Yeah.
Y'all old. But yeah, no, the discussions in class are probably the most like pivotal part,
Yeah.
or is the most pivotal part of the class. Just like talking to other people and getting like what you're thinking out,
Mhm.
like just getting it out in the first place and gaining that confidence is pretty big.
Yeah.
Once you do it like once or twice, you get it's not like scary or intimidating so much anymore. Again, 5 classes deep. Um,
Freshman. No, I'm fine.
no, but yeah. And then just kind of going with that and being shown like factual evidence verifying everything that the professor is teaching
Yeah.
to. Definitely like biggest parts of the class.
Definitely. Yeah, I really, really, really appreciated the conversation based class
Yeah.
because this is the type of material that like most effective way to spread what you want to say is by talking about it. Like that's the
yeah.
big. I reflected on this many times over the course of my reflections, but I'm like really, really big believer in it's so important for people to like have conversations about things they don't agree
Of
upon.
course.
And I think it's really important to learn how to have those conversations because I'm sure you guys have had this experience too in our group where like someone will say something that I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a way to state that you don't agree with them without like causing an argument.
Of
It's
course,
just a
yeah.
conversation you have to have, and I think maybe in society today that's becoming more and more rare where people aren't able to just like talk. And I mean, you see it in the news and with politics and all that stuff. But yeah, I think it was that's like learning. I liked how a lot of the class was based around just a group discussion because learning how to talk about these things in a group setting or even just a one-on-one conversation is really really important because it's going to be one of those things where um, it's kind of on us to go and be able to talk about it, right? Because we are such a small percentage of the population who knows what they're talking about in this regard. So, and I hope going forward like that does change because I don't know if there's another topic that I've ever come across that is such the public is so like majorly ignorant on. Like, this kind of
Yeah, I think it starts with us at this point.
that's
We gotta
I agree.
just
Yeah.
keep it moving.
Any final thoughts, guys? Or?
I mean, yeah, we had a disagreement this last Tuesday.
Yeah.
Fade group 9.
Yeah.
Fade group 9.
Yeah, talking about just like the different which definitions were better. The word about.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like hostile or anything at all, which is like a huge benefit from the class, being able to talk to people in like so a friendly manner.
Yeah.
Still fade group 9, it's group 3.
Yeah.
Without like burning bridges,
Mhm.
so to say.
Yeah.
Like we're still you guys are all pretty cool guys. I mean, I've only known you the duration of the class,
Yeah.
but we've all been able to talk, had
Yeah.
our disagreements in like our group at
Sure.
times, but we're all here talking, laughing, like
Yeah. Learning is the biggest thing. Just
Yeah.
being able to take what we're being taught and apply it going forward. And yeah, my hope is that I do some good with this information,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of I'm in control of that, right? Like so. Yeah, I'm very happy I took this class. Though I will say,
Yeah.
like I got what I wanted to out of it, and probably some more actually. And Anything else you guys want to say before we wrap this
guess-
up? We're
I guess
pushing
you-
an hour here.
yeah.
so-
I guess to your point, I'm very glad I didn't take this online.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know
100%,
a
yeah.
lot of people I know have taken a class like this online and just like ChatGPT'd all of the pretty much everything and just like went about their day. And I'm glad I was able to learn this class, and I'm gonna be able to go out in the world and
Yeah.
just
I think
this
this has
information with
this has
me.
shown me that even though I haven't really been affected by racism and at the either just the personal or the institutional level, like it still applies to me, right? Even though I'm not saying this the topic of discussion necessarily all the time, like this does I guess change the way I maybe live my life, even on like a day-to-day basis in terms of the language I use and the way I approach and talk to people about it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely been beneficial. It shifted my like worldview so much, and
Definitely.
how I talk to people in the language that I use for sure. It's just been overall reinforcing what I've learned, really, more than anything.
Yeah.
I would not have gotten the same value if I took the class online. I would have like just disconnected, or disassociated,
Yeah.
really. But yeah, no, it was just a great class to take.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for
Thank-
listening.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I appreciate
Yeah.
the opportunities you've given us in this class, and
Yeah.
hope all is well.
Thank you for a great semester.
Thank you.